Ethan adjusted the straps of his explorer pack and stared at the alien landscape spread before him. The planet, known as Lyrithus, was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Towering crystal trees sparkled in the pale sunlight, and rivers floated above the ground as if held by invisible threads. The sky glowed in shades of green and violet, and distant mountains shimmered with faint blue light. Every step Ethan took seemed to echo through the strange silence of the alien world. He glanced at his team. Scientists, engineers, and security personnel moved carefully, their faces a mix of awe and tension. Humanity had finally reached a planet that was both beautiful and dangerous. Their mission was clear: explore, learn, and, if possible, make contact with the alien civilization rumored to live here. But none of them had met the alien queen, the mysterious ruler of this planet. She was said to be reclusive, appearing only when absolutely necessary. Ethan, slow down, called Dr. Mira Solis, the team's leader. Her voice had the calm authority of someone who had faced many unknown worlds. Keep your sensors on. The environment is unstable and the locals might not be friendly. Ethan nodded, though his attention was elsewhere. Through the sparkling crystal forest, he thought he saw a figure moving. At first, he assumed it was a trick of the light, but as he squinted, he realized it was humanoid. A female figure, slender, moving with grace that seemed almost unnatural. Her skin glowed faintly and her eyes were bright, reflecting the floating rivers above. "Did anyone else see that?" Ethan whispered, pointing. Several team members glanced in the direction he indicated, but the figure had vanished. Only a gentle rustle of the crystal leaves remained. "Probably just a local animal," one of the engineers muttered. "This place is full of things that look alive but aren't." Ethan did not agree. There was something deliberate in the way the figure moved. Something intelligent. His curiosity ignited. He had studied alien species before, but this felt different. This was the presence of a leader, a ruler. That night, as the team set up camp near a floating river, Ethan could not sleep. He wandered a little away from the base, guided by a strange instinct. The river reflected the alien sky in colors he could not name. Crystals along the banks hummed softly, creating music that seemed almost alive. Then he saw her again. She was closer this time, standing on a raised crystal platform. Her appearance was fragile, almost delicate. Her hair shimmered like liquid silver, and her robe seemed to float as if underwater. Her gaze was calm, almost curious, as if she had been expecting him. Ethan froze, unsure whether to step forward or retreat. There was no fear in her eyes, only quiet authority. He could not understand how someone so seemingly delicate could command an entire civilization. He wanted to study her, to understand, but every instinct warned him to keep his distance. The Queen spoke, though no sound reached Ethan. Somehow, her words entered his mind directly. "You are far from home, human. Why do you walk so boldly in my world?" Ethan blinked. He did not speak aloud. "I'm a scientist," he thought. "I mean no harm. I want to learn." The Queen tilted her head slightly. Her expression was unreadable. Then in an instant she vanished. Ethan blinked and she was gone. He ran back to the camp, unable to explain what he had seen. The next morning, the team continued their exploration under the guidance of the planet's natural sensors. Ethan could not stop thinking about the Queen. Something about her presence made him feel small yet strangely inspired. He realized that humans often measured power by size or weaponry. But here was a being whose power was not obvious. Her strength lay in her control, her understanding, and perhaps her concealment. "Ethan, focus," Mira said as they navigated a field of floating crystals. "We are here to explore, not chase shadows." He nodded, though he knew that shadows did not explain what he had seen. The Queen's sudden appearance and disappearance was deliberate. She was aware of their presence, and she had chosen to reveal herself to him. During their exploration, the team discovered signs of advanced civilization, structures carved into cliffs, flowing with luminous energy, and pathways that defied gravity. There were no signs of conflict or weapons, only elegance and order. The aliens seemed to value harmony, not conquest. Ethan made careful notes. If the Queen rules this civilization, her approach must be subtle. She maintains control without visible force. She hides her full abilities. His mind raced with possibilities. Could humans learn from such a leader? Could he witness the truth behind her carefully constructed image? By the third day, Ethan was granted a rare opportunity. A small delegation of aliens approached the human camp, inviting a single human to accompany them to a ceremonial site. Ethan volunteered, his heart pounding. Mira hesitated but allowed it. The path led to a massive platform suspended high above the floating rivers. The air shimmered with energy. As Ethan stepped forward, he saw the queen again. From a distance, she appeared delicate and unassuming, yet the very environment seemed to respond to her presence. Crystals adjusted their light, the air pulsed gently, and small objects floated briefly before returning to their places. Ethan's jaw went slightly slack. This was not just grace. This was control over the physical world itself. Yet to the alien citizens observing, she appeared serene and fragile. She was concealing the full extent of her abilities, carefully shaping perception. The queen approached, and Ethan felt no fear, only awe. She spoke again, and he understood her words without sound. "You are brave to come here, human. Curiosity is admirable, but caution is wise." Ethan bowed slightly, unsure if such gestures were appropriate. "I wish to understand you and your people," he thought. "I wish to learn how you maintain peace and harmony." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment, as if weighing his intentions. Then she stepped back, allowing the ceremony to continue. Ethan observed the citizens. They respected her, but there was no fear in their eyes. This was different from human societies, where power often relied on intimidation. Ethan's mind worked rapidly. The queen's concealment was deliberate. Her appearance was a tool, as important as her powers. She chose what others could see, and through that she maintained balance. Humans often judged leaders by appearances or force, but here, power was subtle and intelligent. The ceremony ended, and Ethan was escorted back to the camp. He could barely sleep that night, his mind replaying the queen's movements, her energy, and her presence. He understood one thing clearly. Humans had much to learn about leadership, perception, and the responsibilities that came with great power. By the fourth day, Ethan had gained the quiet trust of the queen. She allowed him to observe certain rituals, always from a distance, always concealing her full abilities. Yet even glimpses revealed brilliance and intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Ethan took meticulous notes. He documented how the queen moved objects without touch, how energy seemed to flow through her and her surroundings, and how the citizens responded naturally to her guidance. It was as if her concealment was an art form, designed not to intimidate but to teach harmony and discipline. He realized that this was why humanity had often failed in understanding alien species. Humans relied on visible signs of power, strength, numbers, weapons. But here the queen demonstrated that true strength could lie in wisdom, subtlety, and the control of perception. Ethan could not stop staring. Each day he learned a little more, but the queen remained an enigma. She revealed what she chose, hiding her full reality behind a delicate and fragile appearance. And yet, even in concealment, her power was undeniable. For Ethan, the greatest lesson had already begun. Humans had entered a world far beyond their expectations. They had met a leader whose abilities were hidden, whose wisdom was deep, and whose presence demanded respect without fear. The journey was just beginning, and Ethan knew that the days ahead would challenge everything he thought he knew about leadership, intelligence, and the universe itself. As he closed his journal for the night, Ethan whispered to himself, "I have only seen a fragment, but even that is enough to astonish me. The alien queen conceals her reality, and I can only stare in surprise." He lay down under the glowing alien sky, the floating rivers casting reflections of violet and green over the camp. Somewhere beyond the crystal forest, the queen watched, and Ethan understood that the first true encounter had only just begun. Ethan awoke before sunrise, his mind restless. The memory of the alien queen's presence lingered, a quiet pull that kept him alert. He slipped out of the human camp, careful not to wake his colleagues, and walked toward the crystalline forest. The floating rivers shimmered faintly in the early light, and the air was filled with the soft hum of alien energy. Each step he took seemed to echo, and the crystals around him glowed brighter as if sensing his curiosity. He paused near a clearing, scanning for any movement. The queen was not visible yet, but he felt her presence. It was subtle, a shift in the energy of the environment, a vibration that made the hairs on his arms rise. Ethan had studied alien life forms for years, but he had never sensed intelligence in this way. Suddenly, a small rock lifted into the air. Ethan gasped, watching as it floated and spun slowly. He tried to calm himself, reminding himself that this was a planet full of strange phenomena. But the rock was not alone. Leaves from the crystal trees swirled without wind, and a faint glow appeared around several objects nearby. Then she appeared. The alien queen stepped into the clearing, her figure radiant yet delicate. Her eyes, bright and calm, met his, and Ethan felt both awe and a strange sense of reassurance. She raised her hand slightly, and the floating object settled gently back to the ground. Ethan's heart raced. He had seen hints of her power before, but this was different. It was not a trick or a display. It was a natural extension of her being. He realized that she was not using force. She was controlling the environment as if it were part of herself. "You are curious," she said, her words entering his mind clearly. "You want to understand what you see. But perception is limited. What you see is only a fraction of my reality." "I want to learn," Ethan replied silently. "I want to understand you and your people." The queen nodded slightly, her expression unreadable. Then she stepped closer. The energy around her intensified, but it was not threatening. Objects gently floated around her, shimmering like small stars. Ethan noticed that her presence seemed to calm the environment. Even the floating rivers above remained steady, their colors more vivid. "Observe carefully," she instructed. "Do not rely on what appears. Watch the flow, the patterns, the energy that guides everything." Ethan focused, trying to understand. He watched as she moved through the clearing. The crystals responded to her presence, bending light in ways that revealed hidden pathways. Small creatures, barely visible to the human eye, shifted and adjusted their movements around her. Everything on the planet seemed to follow an invisible order when she was near. "This is why I conceal myself," she said. "If all saw my true form, they would fear me. Fear disrupts harmony. My people follow me because they trust the patterns, not the power behind them." Ethan nodded, slowly understanding. On Earth, humans often judged leaders by strength, by appearance, by weapons. Here, strength was subtle, hidden beneath a calm exterior. Leadership was not about domination, but about influence and balance. Over the next few days, Ethan observed the queen from a safe distance. She allowed him to witness small interactions with her citizens. She walked among them, seemingly delicate and gentle. Children approached her without hesitation, and adults treated her with respect but not fear. Yet Ethan noticed that even minor disturbances in the environment corrected themselves almost immediately when she was present. Rocks, leaves, and even the floating rivers adjusted subtly, guided by her unseen control. One afternoon, Ethan's curiosity got the better of him. He followed her a little too closely as she moved through a crystal garden. A faint ripple of energy passed through the air, and suddenly a small rock rose sharply, striking a crystal tree. Without warning, she moved her hand slightly, and the rock stopped midair before floating safely to the ground. Ethan's eyes widened. He realized she was controlling not just energy, but matter itself. "Do you understand now?" she asked, noticing his astonishment. "This power is not meant to intimidate. It is a tool to maintain order, to protect, and to teach." "It is incredible," Ethan admitted silently. "I have never seen anything like this." She tilted her head slightly, her expression calm. "Humans measure power by what they can see or touch. You believe only what is obvious. But true influence is often hidden. The flow of energy, the balance of life, the harmony of all things. These are what truly matter." Ethan realized she was testing him. By revealing fragments of her abilities, she measured his response, his curiosity, and his respect. She did not need to demonstrate her full power. Her presence alone was a lesson. Later, the queen led him to a small amphitheater carved from crystals. She gestured for him to sit. Objects in the amphitheater floated gently around them, casting soft light. "Watch carefully," she instructed. She lifted her hand, and the objects moved in patterns that seemed impossible. Ethan noticed subtle connections, lines of energy linking the objects. It was like seeing the planet's energy flow visualized. "Everything on Lyrathis is connected," she explained. "Life, matter, and energy are not separate. They respond to guidance, to intention. I conceal myself because perception is fragile. Fear can break connections. Trust maintains balance." Ethan's mind raced. He thought about Earth, about human societies, about how often fear and misunderstanding caused conflict. The queen's methods were entirely different. She did not command through fear. She influenced through understanding and subtle guidance. Can humans learn this? He wondered silently. Can we rise above fear to lead with wisdom? The queen seemed to read his thoughts, perhaps. But first you must learn to see beyond appearances. You must learn patience and observation. Power without understanding is dangerous. Days passed and Ethan continued to observe. He noticed how she could heal small injuries not with medicine, but by directing energy precisely. He saw how she guided small creatures safely through hazards. She was everywhere and nowhere at once, delicate in form but immense in effect. One evening, as the alien sky turned shades of deep purple and green, Ethan asked a question he had been holding back. Why hide so much of yourself? Why not show your full power to your people? The Queen's eyes met his, bright and calm. If all saw my full reality, they would focus on me, not the patterns. Harmony requires focus on the flow, not the source. True leadership is invisible, yet felt everywhere. Ethan realized that this was the most important lesson so far. Humans often celebrated leaders who were visible and dramatic, but here was a leader whose power was mostly unseen. Her strength was in what she concealed, in the wisdom and balance she maintained. As Ethan returned to the human camp that night, he felt both humbled and inspired. He had seen only a fraction of her abilities, yet it was enough to change his perspective. Leadership, power, and influence could be entirely different from what humans imagined. He recorded his observations carefully. Every detail mattered. The patterns of energy, the subtle influence on matter, the calm authority that inspired trust. These were lessons he knew he could share with his team. But he also knew that some aspects of the Queen's reality were beyond human comprehension. Some mysteries were meant to be respected, not solved. As he lay under the alien sky, watching the floating rivers reflect the stars, Ethan felt a quiet determination. He would continue to learn, to observe, and to understand. The alien Queen's concealment was not a challenge but an invitation, a chance to see beyond appearances and grasp the deeper truths of leadership, harmony, and intelligence. For the first time, Ethan understood the meaning of the title that had formed in his mind since their first encounter. The alien Queen conceals her reality, and I can only stare in surprise. But the surprise was not fear. It was awe, respect, and the realization that humanity had much to learn from beings far beyond their understanding. And somewhere beyond the crystal trees, the Queen watched him, not as a threat but as a student, and Ethan knew that the lessons had only just begun. Ethan could hardly sleep that night. He lay under the shimmering alien sky, the floating rivers above reflecting the colors of green, violet, and soft gold. His mind kept returning to the Queen, to the fragments of her abilities he had observed. Every detail he had recorded felt small compared to what he sensed might be her true power. The next morning, he decided to explore a new part of the crystal forest. Mira and the rest of the team were occupied with environmental scans, giving him the perfect opportunity to venture farther. He moved cautiously, aware of the Queen's presence even before he saw her. The air seemed to hum, the crystals casting faint glows that guided his path. Then he saw her. She was near a pool of liquid crystal, her reflection shimmering across its surface. This time she did not notice him at first. Ethan hid behind a cluster of crystalline trees, heart pounding. Suddenly the air shimmered around her. Her delicate form began to change. Ethan's eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. Light pulsed from her body, spreading outward in waves. Her hair and robes became a cascade of pure energy, and her skin seemed to glow from within. The floating crystals around her responded, rising and spinning gently, forming patterns in the air. Ethan's breath caught. This was the true form of the alien Queen. She was not fragile. She was radiant, powerful, and unlike anything he had ever imagined. Energy flowed from her like water, bending reality subtly around her. The fragile figure he had seen before was only a mask, a way to interact safely with her people and outsiders. Why is she hiding this? He thought, astonished. The answer came almost immediately. She did not want to frighten anyone. Her true power could overwhelm even the most advanced mind. She concealed it to maintain harmony, to guide rather than intimidate. The Queen lifted her hand slightly and the liquid crystal pool rose into the air, forming a floating sphere. Within it, Ethan saw a miniature simulation of the forest, the rivers, and even their human camp. She was manipulating matter and energy at will, shaping reality in ways that humans could barely comprehend. Suddenly, she noticed him. Her eyes, now glowing softly, met his. "You see too much," she said in his mind. "Are you prepared for this knowledge?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I want to understand. I want to learn." Her expression softened. "Very well. She gestured, and the floating sphere expanded, revealing the energy networks of the planet. Ethan could see the flow of life, matter, and energy intertwined in ways that made sense on a level he had never experienced. Trees, rivers, animals, even the air itself were connected. The Queen did not merely observe this network. She guided it. She maintained balance without force, ensuring that harmony remained. "This is why I conceal my reality," she explained. "To my people I appear gentle and delicate. To outsiders I appear harmless. But true control is subtle. Leadership is felt, not seen. Fear breaks balance. Respect sustains it." Ethan struggled to find words. The magnitude of what he saw overwhelmed him. He had studied alien species, but none had demonstrated this level of control. The Queen was a living example of wisdom, intelligence, and power, concealed in a form that inspired trust rather than fear. "Can humans achieve this?" he thought. "Can we lead without dominating? Can we inspire without threatening?" The Queen seemed to sense his thoughts. "Perhaps. But first you must understand patience and observation. True power is not shown in displays, but in understanding the flow of all things." Ethan nodded, silently acknowledging her lesson. He realized that human leaders often relied on visible strength, weapons, armies, or displays of authority. Here power was invisible yet present everywhere. It was a flow, a guidance that shaped the world without being noticed. For the next several hours he watched as she demonstrated subtle manipulations. She directed a small creature to safety, guided a flow of water through a floating river, and corrected minor disruptions in the crystal forest. All the while, her appearance remained partly concealed so an observer might still think her form delicate and fragile. Yet every movement displayed mastery. Ethan took careful notes, though he knew words could never capture the full reality. He realized that this knowledge was as dangerous as it was valuable. Misunderstood, it could frighten or confuse, but shared wisely, it could inspire understanding and cooperation. As the sun reached its highest point, the Queen led him closer. She allowed him to stand near her, to feel the hum of energy around her body. The vibrations were not threatening, only strong and steady. "You must remember," she said, "that concealment is not deception. It is protection. It shields both the observer and the observed. It allows learning to happen without fear, without misunderstanding." Ethan nodded. "I understand now. Your people trust you because they focus on harmony, not power. And the rest of us see only what we need to see to learn without fear." She regarded him thoughtfully. "Yes. Observation is the first step. Respect and patience are the next. Only then can understanding grow." Ethan realized that her lessons went beyond leadership. They were about life itself. The planet, its creatures, and its energy network thrived because the Queen guided it with wisdom and restraint. Power alone would have destroyed this balance. Only subtlety, patience, and understanding maintained it. He spent the rest of the day learning from her. She demonstrated minor energy manipulations, small adjustments to matter, and methods of influencing behavior without force. Ethan was amazed at the elegance and precision. Every action had purpose, every movement maintained harmony. By evening, Ethan returned to the human camp, exhausted but exhilarated. Mira noticed the intensity in his eyes. "What did you see?" she asked. I saw her true form," Ethan replied, trying to control his excitement. "The Queen is not fragile. She is radiant and powerful, controlling energy and matter at will, and yet she conceals this to maintain harmony." Mira frowned. "Can humans handle this?" Ethan shook his head. "We must learn from her approach. Leadership is not always visible. Power is in guidance, in understanding, in protecting balance. This is far beyond anything we have known." That night, Ethan recorded every detail in his journal. He drew diagrams of the energy flows, notes on her movements, and reflections on the philosophy of concealment. For the first time, he felt a deep respect for a form of power, unlike anything humans valued. As he lay under the alien sky, watching the floating rivers reflect the stars, Ethan understood the full meaning of his encounter. The Queen's concealment was not secrecy or trickery. It was wisdom, patience, and responsibility. She carried the weight of an entire civilization, yet allowed others to live without fear. He whispered quietly, "I can only stare in surprise. But this surprise is not fear. It is understanding. It is respect. And I have much to learn." And somewhere beyond the crystal trees, the Queen observed him, calm and deliberate. She had revealed enough to teach him, but not so much that he could overwhelm himself. Her concealment remained, a lesson in patience, observation, and the true nature of power. Ethan knew that the journey ahead would be even more challenging. The Queen's abilities were vast, and understanding them fully would take time. But he felt ready. He had glimpsed the reality behind the mask, and he knew that humanity had much to learn if it wished to rise to the level of wisdom he had seen here. The night deepened, and the alien forest pulsed softly with life. Ethan closed his eyes, allowing the lessons to settle. The Queen's hidden power was no longer a mystery to him. He understood that leadership, guidance, and harmony were more than mere concepts. They were living, flowing realities, carefully maintained by one extraordinary being. And in that realization, Ethan felt both humbled and inspired. The alien Queen concealed her reality, and he could only stare in awe, knowing that the greatest lessons were yet to come. The morning sun rose over Lerathis, casting violet and green light across the crystal forests. Ethan stood at the edge of the human camp, reviewing his notes from the previous days. He had seen the alien Queen's true form, understood her control over energy and matter, and grasped the wisdom in her concealment. Yet today felt different. There was tension in the air, subtle but unmistakable. A scout returned from the outer perimeter, panting and wide-eyed. "Sir," he said to Mira, "there is movement near the northern cliffs. It is not like the usual patrols of her people." Mira frowned, motioning for the scout to continue. "Describe it carefully," the scout hesitated. "There are beings, humanoid in shape but larger and more aggressive. Their energy is chaotic, unstable. I think they are planning an attack." Ethan's heart raced. He had read about rival factions on Lerathis, but he had never imagined they would move against the Queen so soon. Her concealment had maintained balance for centuries, but the challenge had arrived. Mira turned to Ethan. "You understand her better than anyone here. We need your input. How can we help?" Ethan nodded. "We cannot fight them with force alone. The Queen's power is subtle and intelligent. If we combine her guidance with human strategy, we might defend the territory without disrupting the balance." The team moved quickly, setting up communication channels with the Queen. Ethan approached her first. She was standing near the floating river, serene and calm. Her eyes, bright with energy, met his. "They are coming," Ethan said. "Your people are threatened." She nodded slightly. "I am aware. Their energy is chaotic, seeking dominance. If unchecked, they will disrupt the harmony of this region. We can help," Ethan offered. "If you guide us, we can use human tactics to support you." The Queen regarded him carefully. "Very well, but remember, intervention must be subtle. Force alone will break balance. Cooperation is the key." Ethan returned to the human team and relayed her instructions. They would need to act in coordination with her influence, using strategy, intelligence, and timing rather than raw strength. Every movement had to respect the energy flow she maintained. The rival faction advanced rapidly, their presence unsettling the natural patterns. Ethan observed as the Queen subtly redirected rivers, adjusted the floating crystals, and created protective barriers without apparent force. Humans could not see the full extent of her power, but they could feel the difference in the environment. Obstacles shifted, pathways changed, and the attackers found themselves diverted subtly without realizing it. Ethan guided the human team, coordinating movements with the Queen's subtle manipulations. Engineers deployed temporary energy shields in the areas where her influence intersected with theirs. Security teams moved strategically, blocking paths and guiding attackers away from civilian areas. "Do not interfere with her patterns," Ethan reminded his team. "We support, we do not dominate. Watch her guidance carefully." Hours passed and the tension grew. The rival faction was strong and persistent, but every time they seemed to gain ground, the Queen adjusted subtly. Rivers shifted to block paths, rocks floated into obstacles, and small creatures guided attackers away. It was not a battle of brute force. It was a dance of strategy, intelligence, and precision. Ethan marveled at her skill. Even when her appearance suggested delicacy, every movement carried weight. She did not need to fight directly. Her influence guided the environment, humans, and allies alike to maintain harmony and safety. At one point, a group of attackers breached the first line of human defense. Ethan's team was ready, but he saw the Queen's eyes shift toward the intruders. With a slight gesture, she created a subtle energy field, disorienting the attackers just enough to slow their advance. Human forces moved in precisely at that moment, redirecting the enemy without causing harm. This is remarkable, Ethan thought. Her concealment is not hiding weakness, it is hiding wisdom. The battle continued through the day, each moment a delicate balance of human action and alien influence. Ethan learned to anticipate her adjustments, to act in harmony rather than independently. He realized that the Queen's true power lay not only in her abilities, but in how she inspired others to work together. As evening approached, the last of the rival attackers retreated. They had been guided away, blocked by environmental adjustments and subtly redirected by both the Queen and Ethan's coordination. No one was harmed, yet the threat had been neutralized. Harmony was restored. The Queen approached Ethan, her form glowing softly in the fading light. "You have done well," she said in his mind. "You observed, learned, and applied knowledge. You understood that power is not in domination but in guidance and cooperation." Ethan bowed slightly, humbled. "I learned from you. Your concealment is not just about hiding power. It is about teaching balance, harmony, and patience." "Correct," she replied. "Leadership is not what is seen but what is felt. Intervention must be measured. Respect and understanding are stronger than fear or force." The human team gathered around, awed by the subtlety and effectiveness of the Queen's guidance. They realized that what they had witnessed was more than a battle. It was a demonstration of intelligence, restraint, and wisdom. Humans had often relied on weapons and numbers. Here, success came from observation, careful action, and working in harmony with those far more capable than themselves. Mira looked at Ethan. "I have never seen anything like this. We often measure success by strength. Today we learned a different kind of power." Ethan nodded. "And we must carry this lesson forward. Humans can learn from her approach. Guidance, patience, and subtlety can achieve what force alone cannot." The Queen turned her gaze to the human camp. "Your kind has potential," she said. "You observe and act with intelligence. You are willing to learn. That is the first step toward understanding the flow of all things." Ethan realized that the Queen's concealment was not only about her own safety, or the safety of her people. It was also a way to teach outsiders to test their patience, observation, and willingness to cooperate. Those who rushed in with assumptions or fear would fail. Those who observed carefully, respected patterns, and applied wisdom would succeed. As night fell, the floating rivers reflected the colors of the alien sky. The Queen stood at the edge of the crystal forest, calm and radiant. Ethan approached her. "Will there be more challenges?" he asked. She looked at him thoughtfully. "There will always be challenges. The universe is vast and balance is fragile. But each challenge is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to maintain harmony." Ethan nodded. He understood now that strength alone was meaningless. Leadership required understanding, subtlety, and cooperation. The Queen had guided humanity to see beyond appearances, to recognize the power in patience, observation, and strategy. For the first time, Ethan felt a deep connection with the Queen's philosophy. Humanity had much to learn, but here on Larathis he had witnessed the potential for growth. The alien Queen's concealment was not a barrier. It was a doorway to understanding. As the humans prepared to rest, Ethan reflected on the day. The rival faction had been repelled without bloodshed, not through weapons or violence, but through intelligence, observation, and harmony. The Queen's hidden abilities had been the key, yet it was the cooperation between humans and her guidance that had ensured success. "This is the lesson we must take home," he thought. True strength lies not in force but in understanding and applying wisdom. The Queen watched silently, her presence a calming influence over the human team. Ethan realized that he had not only witnessed her abilities but had been a part of her teaching. The day's events had been more than a challenge. They had been a test of character, intelligence, and patience. As he lay beneath the alien sky that night, Ethan whispered to himself, "I see now that the Queen conceals her reality not to hide, but to teach, and I have only begun to learn." Somewhere beyond the crystal forest, the Queen observed him, calm and deliberate. The humans had proven their willingness to cooperate, to learn, and to act with intelligence. She had revealed just enough to guide them, without overwhelming their understanding. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the hum of energy around him. The lesson was clear. Power was not in domination, but in harmony, subtlety, and cooperation. And in this moment, He knew that humanity had taken an important step toward understanding the wider universe. The morning on Lyrathis was calm, almost serene after the events of the previous day. The rival faction had retreated, leaving the forests and floating rivers untouched. Ethan walked along the crystalline path, marveling at the way light danced across the surfaces. The alien sky reflected soft shades of green and violet, and the air hummed gently, carrying a sense of balance. Mira and the rest of the human team were busy documenting the outcomes of the confrontation. Engineers checked energy shields and scientists recorded changes in the environment. Everyone moved carefully, respecting the harmony that the alien queen had preserved. Ethan, however, could not stop thinking about the queen. She had guided them without force, teaching humans the meaning of subtle power. Her concealment had allowed them to act without fear, and yet her influence had been the reason their efforts succeeded. He realized that they had witnessed a leadership style far beyond human experience, an intelligence that valued guidance, patience, and balance over dominance. He walked toward the floating river, sensing her presence before he saw her. She stood at the edge, radiant and calm, her true form visible only to those who observed carefully. Energy shimmered around her, subtle but undeniable. Ethan approached respectfully, bowing slightly. "You have done well," the queen said, her thoughts entering his mind with clarity. "You applied what you learned, observed carefully, and acted with wisdom. Harmony is restored because you chose cooperation over force." "We learned from you," Ethan replied. "Your guidance was clear even when your power was hidden. Humans often rely on strength, but you showed us the importance of understanding and subtlety." The queen's eyes glowed softly and she smiled faintly. "True leadership is invisible, yet it shapes everything. You have seen this and now you understand. But understanding alone is not enough. You must remember and apply these lessons in your own world." Ethan nodded. He realized that humanity's journey was just beginning. The queen's concealment had been a test, a way to show what true power and wisdom looked like. Those who rushed or acted without thought would fail, but those who observed, respected patterns, and applied knowledge could succeed. "Your people are ready to learn from humans as well," the queen continued. "They have observed your actions, your courage, and your intelligence. Cooperation benefits all. Trust and respect are the foundation of lasting alliances." Ethan smiled. He felt a deep sense of pride and humility. Humans had proven themselves capable of learning from a being far beyond their comprehension. The alien queen's guidance had shown them a new way to think about leadership, power, and responsibility. The team gathered around the queen, observing her carefully. Even in her concealed form, her presence was commanding yet calming. Children and adults from her civilization moved freely, showing no fear, only respect. Ethan realized that this was the ultimate lesson. Power is not demonstrated by domination or fear, but by creating trust, harmony, and balance. "Can we help your people in other ways?" Ethan asked. "Can humans contribute without disrupting your world?" The queen regarded him thoughtfully. "Yes, you may share knowledge, technology, and insights, but always with care. Your contributions must enhance harmony, not disturb it." The test was never about confrontation. It was about learning to act wisely and respectfully. Ethan thought about the implications. Humans had often relied on strength, tools, and numbers to solve problems. Here they had learned that cooperation, intelligence, and respect could achieve far more. The lesson extended beyond Lyrathis. It was a principle that could change humanity itself. "We understand," Ethan said. "We will act with care and cooperation, guided by what we have learned." The queen nodded. "Then harmony will continue, and your people will grow wiser for this experience." For the rest of the day, the humans worked alongside the alien citizens. Engineers repaired minor damages caused by the rival faction. Scientists studied the environment with careful observation, and explorers mapped previously unknown regions. All the while, the queen moved through the environment, her presence guiding actions, maintaining balance, and ensuring that no harm came to anyone. Ethan observed her closely. He noticed how her movements subtly influenced the flow of energy, how she adjusted the environment without visible force, and how every action inspired confidence and cooperation. He realized that concealment was not a weakness but a deliberate teaching tool. By appearing delicate, she allowed others to act freely while still guiding outcomes toward harmony. That evening, Ethan and Mira discussed the lessons they had learned. Humans have much to take from this, Mira said. We often rely on visible power, but here intelligence, patience, and cooperation achieved far more. Ethan nodded. Yes. The Queen's concealment was never deception. It was wisdom. She taught us to see beyond appearances, to act carefully, and to respect patterns and harmony. As night fell, the alien sky filled with stars, reflected in the floating rivers. Ethan sat quietly, recording his observations. The Queen stood nearby, radiant yet calm, observing the humans as they worked, rested, and reflected. Will we see more of her true form? Mira asked softly. Ethan thought for a moment. Only as much as we are ready to understand. Her concealment is a lesson in patience and respect. The more we learn, the more she reveals, but only what we can comprehend and use wisely. The Queen seemed to respond, though her words were unspoken. You have learned enough for now. The rest will come in time as your understanding grows. Ethan felt a quiet pride. Humans had faced a challenge, acted with intelligence and care, and learned from a being far beyond their capabilities. They had seen what true leadership looked like, even if only partially. The Queen's concealment had been a guide, not a barrier. As the human camp prepared to return to their main base, Ethan looked back at the Queen one last time. Her figure glowed softly against the alien night. Delicate in appearance, yet immense in reality. He realized that this encounter had changed him. He had witnessed the value of wisdom over force, of guidance over domination, and of patience over haste. The universe is far larger than we imagined, he thought. And there is so much to learn from those who understand it better than we do. The Queen's presence seemed to acknowledge his thought. She had tested him, guided him, and allowed him to learn lessons that would benefit not only humans on Lyrathis, but potentially humanity itself. As Ethan lay under the alien sky one final night, he reflected on the journey. The alien Queen's concealment was a teaching tool, a way to show that power is not in what is seen but in what is understood. Humans had begun to grasp that lesson, and in doing so, had taken an important step toward growth and cooperation. We can learn from this, he whispered. We can grow wiser, stronger, and more thoughtful. The Queen has shown us a better way. Somewhere beyond the crystal forest, the Queen watched silently. Her form glowed with quiet strength, her concealment still in place for those who needed guidance without fear. Humanity had proven themselves capable of learning, cooperating, and respecting patterns. Harmony had been restored, and the lessons would endure. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the hum of energy in the air. He understood that the greatest power was not in domination or displays of strength. It was in guidance, cooperation, understanding, and respect for the balance of all things. And in that moment he smiled, knowing that the universe had shown him something truly extraordinary. The alien Queen had concealed her reality, but through patience, observation, and wisdom he had glimpsed her truth. It was a lesson he would carry forever. As dawn approached, the human team prepared to depart from Lyrathis. They had learned much, not only about the planet and its people, but about themselves. Ethan felt a quiet resolve. Humanity had taken an important step toward understanding a larger universe. They had seen what true intelligence, power, and leadership could look like, and they would never forget it. The Queen remained near the edge of the forest, watching them leave. She had guided, taught, and revealed just enough. Her concealment remained, but now Ethan understood that concealment was a form of wisdom. Some truths must be approached carefully, observed patiently, and respected fully. As the humans lifted off into the sky, Ethan looked back at the Queen one last time. Her radiant figure stood calm and serene among the crystal trees. He whispered to himself, "The alien Queen conceals her reality, and I can only stare in awe. But now I understand the lesson, and I will carry it forward." The stars of Lyrathis shimmered in the alien sky, reflecting the harmony restored. Ethan knew that humanity had grown, not through force or fear, but through patience, observation, and the wisdom of a truly extraordinary being. And with that, the humans departed, leaving the Queen and her world in quiet balance, a testament to the power of subtlety, guidance, and understanding.